Please be seated. I have a question to start with this morning. What color am I wearing? What color am I wearing, Brooklyn? Pink. Pink? You're wearing pink too. Pink. I've heard a lot of people shout out pink. I've heard a few of our young people in the front rows say pink. Who thinks I'm wearing pink? We got about half the hands say I'm wearing pink. What other name for this color might some people know? Yeah. Rose. Yeah, what? Maeve? You're wearing pink too. You're wearing pink too. This is called rose. It's called rose, which, let's be honest, is kind of pink, isn't it? Okay. And we wear the rose color vestments on the same day that we light the rose color candle here. Okay. And here's another, I'm going to give you another trick question. What color is this? Purple. Who thinks this is purple? Who has another name for this color? What do you think? Violet. We go by flowers, don't we? Rose and violet. It's called violet. This is the liturgical violet color, and this is the liturgical rose color. But I think you're right. I think we can call them pink and purple, and I think that's okay. I think that's okay because that's the more common name for those colors, isn't it? Okay. And the reason we wear our pink or our rose today is because we celebrate a day called Gaudete Sunday. Can you say Gaudete? Gaudete Sunday. Now, who here knows what gaudete means? That's a funny word, isn't it? Gaudete. What does that mean? Anybody have any ideas? I heard it. I heard it under somebody's breath. I heard somebody say it. Gaudete is a Latin word, and it's a second-person action verb. So that means it's telling you to do something, and it means rejoice. Gaudete, rejoice. And the pink or the rose color gives us a little break from our violet color, which tells us that we're focusing on being something called repentant, which is where we're working on ourselves. The rose reminds us that we can get a little break from that, and it's okay, and we should have a little fun, and we can rejoice a little bit. So that's why we changed colors a little more than halfway through Advent, and we do the same thing a little more than halfway through Lent. Okay? Now, there's only 2 Sundays a year when we wear these pink or these rose vestments. Today and another day during Lent called Laetare Sunday. And that takes place a little more than halfway through Lent. So they're both kind of a reminder that the end of the season is coming soon. And for us, the end of this season is coming about a week from now. Because 1 week from today is the 4th Sunday, which is also Christmas Eve. Now, liturgically speaking, December 24th in the morning is the 4th Sunday of Advent. And then once we get to 6 o'clock when our service starts, that's when it turns into Christmas Eve. So it's not officially Christmas Eve on that calendar until our evening service starts. It'll still be the 4th Sunday of Advent. And on the 4th Sunday of Advent, we go back to our violet colored vestments. Okay. And we hear from one of our friends today. Who did we hear about? Who was in our story today? John the Baptist. And John the Baptist is a pretty important person to us, isn't he? Because that's the name of our church. Our church is named after John the Baptist. Okay? Now, I think John the Baptist is kind of a weird dude. You agree with that? No, you don't agree? You think he's pretty normal? Okay. I think he's pretty weird. Who agrees with me that John's pretty weird? I think John's pretty weird. I mean, you can think he's normal. That doesn't mean I'm right just because I think he's weird. But I think he wore funny clothes. And I think he ate funny foods. He ate locusts and honey. Now, the honey, I can go for honey. But who here wants to eat locusts? We got one person willing to try locusts. Anybody else? 2, 3. We got 3 people willing to try locusts. The honey I can go with, the locusts not so much. And John, if we think of it, you're willing to try them too? Okay, well, we got 4 people in this church willing to try locusts. And John was kind of a pioneer. We could say he was on the paleo diet before the paleo diet was cool. Right? Because those are paleo-approved foods. Okay? And John, I think, is a good guy for us to listen to because he's kind of weird. He's kind of weird and he's kind of kooky and he's kind of silly. But what John does is he uses himself to point us toward Jesus. He says that in the gospel today. I'm here to tell you about the one who's coming after me. So he points people to Jesus. So we can follow John's example and we can point other people toward Jesus. And the cool thing about that is we get to do that as we are. That means we get to do that by wearing the clothing that makes us comfortable and by eating the foods that make us comfortable and by living our lives in the way that we think is an appropriate way to live our lives. Now, has anyone ever told you that you should do something? I hear some snickering. So I'm guessing, you've heard that? You've heard that? I'm guessing that that's a pretty common experience. Somebody says, you should do this, right? You should dress a certain way. Or you should behave more like this person over here. Or you should work harder. Or maybe you shouldn't work quite so hard. And we hear lots of different shoulds that come from other people. And you should enjoy this, or you shouldn't let that bother you, right? And we hear, especially this time of year when we're getting ready for, we talked about a couple weeks ago, New Year's resolutions, and we've got lots of people making New Year's resolutions, and we hear people say, oh, you should lose weight, or some people say you should gain weight, all kinds of things. You should watch less television, you should read more books. There's lots of should. That word should seems to come up a lot, doesn't it? Well, I got news for you. I don't like that word should. I don't think it's a helpful word, okay? Because it's loaded, right? And it's kind of the opposite of what we mean when we say "gadate," rejoice. Because should can be kind of shameful, can't it? It's kind of a shameful word. It's an imposition. And if we don't do what we should do, then we can feel like we messed up or we failed. And that isn't helpful. If we feel like we're wrong, that doesn't help us in our lives to feel like we should do something other than we are, or we should be someone other than we are. That's not joyful. That's not gadate. Okay? And John the Baptist lived by a philosophy that I think we can all learn from. Okay? And I'm going to say a phrase here, and I'm going to try to articulate it well so that you don't think I'm saying something other than what I'm saying. Don't should on yourself. I said should. Don't should on yourself. I know it can sound like I said something else, but don't should on yourself. Okay? Shoulding on ourselves doesn't do us any favors. Do you have a question? Well, I'm going to tell you. What does it mean? I'm going to tell you. Shoulding on yourself is when you're telling yourself, I should do this. Because sometimes when we hear other people tell us what we should do, sometimes we start to buy into it. And then we say it ourselves. Then we say, oh, I don't feel good, but I really should go for a walk this morning. Right? I don't feel like eating broccoli, but I really should eat broccoli today. Right? That's shoulding on ourselves. Now, is eating broccoli and going for a walk a good idea? Yes, right? But we don't have to should on ourselves and make us feel bad if we don't do those things. Does that make sense? Does that make a little more sense? Okay. Now, the problem with doing that, with shoulding on ourselves, is that those expectations are imposed on us by somebody else. Okay, now let's think of our friend John the Baptist. Now, John was, I'm going to call him Jesus' cousin, because he was a relative of Jesus, and we don't know exactly how they were related, but I think the word cousin kind of gives us the idea. Okay, so let's think of our friend John the Baptist, and let's think of how many times in his life somebody might have told him, you know, the cousin of Jesus really shouldn't wear a camel hair coat. Or the cousin of Jesus really shouldn't eat locusts and honey. I can imagine John being told that. Or, well, the cousin of Jesus really shouldn't be baptizing people. That's something that Jesus should do and not you. Okay? I'm guessing that that's probably not too far off from what people were telling John the Baptist. And, well, what happened in that situation when he was told you shouldn't be baptizing people, that's for Jesus to do? Well, Jesus went to him and he said, I want John to baptize me. Okay? So John points people to Jesus, and Jesus points people right back to John. Jesus empowers John. Jesus gives John the authority to do things so that he can continue to point people toward him. And I think that's pretty cool. And I think that's something that we all want to try to work on doing, is to empowering one another to live into our Christian callings. Okay? So that's something that I'm supposed to do it without shoulding on you. Okay? I'm going to try to encourage you. That's what I try to do as your priest. I try to encourage you and empower you. And the first thing I want to encourage you and to empower you to do is to be yourself. I want you to be yourself. Okay? And I want to encourage you to do those things that you feel you're called to do. Now, I want to make sure that you're being honest with yourself, right? We don't want to let ourselves off the hook, right? Just because, oh, Father Tim says we shouldn't do this, so I even said the word. It's so ingrained in our being that I just said it should. But I'm not saying that we're letting ourselves off the hook, right? We want to still be honest with ourselves, and if there's something we decide we might need to work on, well, we want to do that. But within those parameters, right? We want to work on being the best self that we can be. Okay? And I think we can do that by following John's example. So be you. Do what you feel called to do. And dress how you want to dress. And do the things that you want to do. Don't rely on other people to tell you who you should be. And don't let yourself fall into a trap of telling yourself that you should be someone other than who you are. Okay? Now, for those of us who are married, did somebody in your life, like maybe your mother-in-law, ever tell you, you should go on a diet? Right? Well, if she does, tell her to mind her own business. Now, did your sister or somebody else in your life tell you should wear a different outfit to go out to dinner? Well, tell her you're comfortable wearing what you want to wear. Now, did your boss tell you that you should be on time to work? That one you might want to listen to. Or if your teacher tells you should do your homework. Okay, well, that one you might want to listen to. But those other things, we don't want to fall into that trap of letting other people tell us what we should do or who we should be. Because you are yourself. And you are beloved, just as you are. And not only are you beloved, but you are lovable. Lovable. And you're worthy of love. You can't do anything to become worthy of earning love. And in fact, if you had to earn love, then it's not really love. Because love is unconditional. Love is unconditional. And you are lovable and you are beloved for the person God made you to be. Now But what does beloved mean? Well, it means that you're loved by a whole lot. You get a whole lot of love. People in your life love you. God loves you. Right? You are a loved person. Does that make sense? All right. Well, thanks for asking. It's good to have clarifying. If we don't know what we're talking about, then it doesn't help us, does it? So that's why I appreciate you asking questions. Okay. So we're continuing our journey through Advent. And then next week, as I said, we have the fourth Sunday of Advent, which falls on the 24th of December. And so it kind of feels like in some ways we get cheated out of a whole week of Advent. Last year we had a whole week of the fourth week of Advent. And this year we don't even have a full day right? Because of the way our calendar works. We only get 22 days of Advent this year. But we can still make the most of that time, right? And we can still ask ourselves questions like, how has Advent been this year for me? And how has my self-check-in been? When we've been to these 2 weeks, these violet weeks, when we're supposed to do some self-work, how has that gone? How's that gone? What have we learned about ourselves? Have we noticed that there are people in our lives who we can look to, who point us to Jesus? Have we been able to point other people to Jesus? Have we enhanced our relationships with each other and with God? And if so, well, I think that's pretty great. So if that's the case, then well done. And if it's not the case, well, guess what? It's not too late. It's not too late. We still have a week of Advent left, but we still keep going. Even after Advent, we still keep going, and our work is not done. We keep coming back to this place, to the church, to be nourished and to be fed by being in the presence of other people who love us, and by sharing the holy food, the communion, the body of Christ, that allows us to go out into the world and to bring ourselves into the world to be his hands and feet in the world. So as we make our way toward Christmas, it's only a week away now, let's channel our inner John the Baptist. Let's try to be like John. And let's embrace our quirkiness and our weirdness and our silliness and our differentness. I happen to think that this parish, that St. John's, does a pretty good job of being ourselves. And I think we do things a little differently here than maybe they do at some other churches. But I think we do things pretty darn well. Pretty darn well. And I'm a little biased here, but I'm proud of us. I'm proud of St. John's. Now, if there's one thing we should do, it's that we should continue to be ourselves and to do the things that we're doing, and then to build on those things. This Gaudete Sunday, we get to rejoice. Jesus is coming at Christmas, and we get to point other people toward him. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Amen.